testing, and I understand that you're not necessarily a keen advocate of mass testing.
No, I'm not convinced that mass testing will do what we really need to do at the present time. So I'm really with Chris Whitty when he said that we don't really need to necessarily identify every case. The really important thing at the moment is that the frontline workers can be tested. So we need to know whether such and such a doctor can come back to work after having been in isolation. We need to know whether a nurse can come off a ward after a potential infection. So that's going to keep the wheels of the NHS running more smoothly. And of course, we need to know when patients come in with respiratory symptoms, we need to know whether they will go into the isolation ward for COVID or whether their symptoms are due to some other problem. So that's the really important thing. Mass testing will give us better statistics, and people have been complaining, why don't we have as many tests as other countries? But really, that's a bit of a pointless competition. What we really need to do is to keep our death rate down, and therefore we need to concentrate our testing efforts on what's happening in the front line.
OK, well, let's stick with that point that you've made about the NHS. There are 550,000 people in the NHS who are on the front line. 25% of them at the moment, Derek, as you know, are at home, which is leading to huge problems, huge pressure on the system and those that are there. And yet, so far, we've managed to test. Do you know what the number is, Derek?
It's very low indeed, I believe,
2,000.
Comparatively speaking, to 125,000, yes.
I mean, what the hell's going on? Are we not... when we started off at the beginning of this crisis, and of course nobody could know exactly, how it would go and where it would go, but we had all these assurances that we were ready, we were capable. I mean, how is it that Germany is in such a better position than we are to test people, including key workers?
Well, I think a good analogy is probably what many of us have been seeing in the supermarkets recently. With any procurement problem, you're relying on your supplier having the material in the quantity that you've been led to expect in the past. And many of us have turned up in supermarkets and found mysteriously that overnight all the pasta has gone, all of the toilet roll has gone, and so on. Yes. It's much the same in the global procurement market for chemical goods. We simply didn't get to the sources fast enough in order to source everything that we needed to, so that there is a supply chain problem there. These things, the protective equipment and all the materials that are needed for production of the testing kits and so on, are going to the highest bidder, and a lot of the time they've already been bought.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Derek, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Derek, they're making the point that whether mass testing of the whole population is the right way forward, it certainly is with the National Health Service. We have so far managed to test 2,000 of the 500,000 people that work for the National Health Service. Is the government failing on testing? You bet your life they are.